In a distant future, where humans had spread across the stars and built colonies on faraway planets, stories of an old warship called the Iron Vanguard were told in hushed whispers. These tales spoke of a mighty ship that once ruled the skies, armed with weapons no one could match and protected by armor no enemy could pierce. But over time, the ship vanished without a trace, leaving behind only legends. Many dismissed these stories as nothing more than myths. Stories meant to entertain bored pilots and engineers during long shifts. Captain Daniel Carter was one such skeptic. A seasoned officer stationed at Outpost Delta 7, he had spent years patrolling the edges of human territory. To him, the idea of the Iron Vanguard seemed like something out of a child's bedtime story. He had heard all the rumors, the ship appearing suddenly in battles, wiping out entire fleets, then disappearing as mysteriously as it came. But he never gave them much thought. After all, there was no proof, just tall tales and wild imaginations. Outpost Delta 7 was a quiet place, orbiting a barren moon near the edge of known space. It wasn't glamorous work, but someone had to keep watch over the frontier. Daniel led a small team of soldiers and technicians who monitored the surrounding area for any signs of trouble. Most days were uneventful, filled with routine checks and minor repairs. But lately things had started to feel different. Lieutenant Emily Dawson, the outpost's chief sensor analyst, noticed it first. She was sitting in the control room, staring intently at her screen when she saw something strange. The readings flickered across her monitor, faint but unmistakable. Energy signatures unlike anything she'd ever encountered before. At first, she thought it might be a glitch or interference from nearby asteroids. But when the pattern repeated itself several times over the next few hours, she knew this was no accident. Curious, Emily decided to dig deeper. She cross-referenced the data with old archives stored in the outpost's database. What she found sent chills down her spine. The energy signatures matched descriptions recorded centuries ago, descriptions linked to none other than the Iron Vanguard. Her heart raced as she realized what this could mean. Could the legendary warship actually exist? Or was this just some bizarre coincidence? Unable to contain her excitement, Emily rushed to find Daniel. She found him in the mess hall, sipping coffee while reviewing patrol schedules. "Captain," she said breathlessly, holding up her tablet, "you need to see this." Daniel glanced up, raising an eyebrow. "What is it now, Lieutenant?" Well, it's hard to explain," Emily stammered, placing the tablet on the table. "I've been picking up unusual readings out in Sector 9. Look at these patterns. They're almost identical to the ones described in the old reports about the Iron Vanguard." Daniel leaned forward, studying the data skeptically. "You think this is real? That the ship might still be out there?" "I don't know what to think," Emily admitted. "But if it is, we can't ignore it. This could change everything." For a moment, Daniel said nothing. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as nonsense, just another myth. But another part, a tiny, nagging voice, wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was truth to the legend. Finally, he sighed and stood up. "All right," he said firmly. "We'll send a recon team to check it out. If this turns out to be nothing, I'm blaming you for wasting resources." Emily smiled nervously. "Understood, sir." As Daniel began assembling a team for the mission, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into unknown territory. Whether it was a ghost ship or just a glitch in the system, one thing was certain: whatever lay ahead, it wouldn't be ordinary. And deep down, despite his doubts, Daniel couldn't help but feel a spark of curiosity. And maybe even a little hope. The next morning, Captain Daniel Carter gathered his team in the briefing room. The air was tense as everyone waited to hear what he had to say. On the screen behind him, Lieutenant Emily Dawson displayed the strange energy readings she had discovered. The patterns were unusual, fluctuating and erratic, unlike anything they had seen before. "We're sending a recon team to Sector 9, Daniel announced, his voice steady but firm. "Lieutenant Ryan Mitchell will lead the mission. Your job is simple: Find the source of these readings and report back. If it's nothing, we move on. But if it's something—" He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We need to know." Ryan nodded, his sharp features showing determination. A skilled pilot with a reputation for taking risks, he was eager to prove himself. Joining him would be two other crew members: Corporal Jessica Moore, a calm and methodical engineer, and Ensign Alex Turner, a young communications specialist known for his quick thinking. As the team prepared for departure, Emily approached Ryan privately. "Be careful out there," she said quietly. "These readings are unpredictable. We don't know what you might encounter." Ryan gave her a confident smile. "Don't worry, Lieutenant. If this turns out to be the Iron Vanguard, I'll make sure to get a good look at it for you." With that, the squad boarded their small reconnaissance ship and launched into the void of space. Sector 9 was located deep in uncharted territory, far from any human colonies. As they flew closer to the coordinates where the readings had been detected, the tension aboard the ship grew thicker. The scanners began picking up faint signals again, growing stronger by the minute. "Something's definitely out here," Alex muttered, adjusting the controls on his console. His brow furrowed as he tried to pinpoint the exact location of the signal. "But it keeps shifting. It's like it doesn't want to be found." Jessica frowned, studying her own instruments. Could it be interference from asteroids or debris? Maybe some kind of natural phenomenon. Ryan shook his head. "No, this feels different. Whatever it is, it's big." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across the cockpit as the systems began to malfunction. "What's happening?" Alex shouted, frantically tapping at his controls. "I'm losing connection to Delta 7. Before anyone could respond, a massive shadow loomed ahead of them. Emerging from behind a cluster of asteroids was an enormous vessel, a warship so large it seemed to blot out the stars. Its surface gleamed with metallic armor, scarred from countless battles. Strange symbols were etched into its hull, glowing faintly in the darkness. "It's real," Ryan whispered, his voice filled with awe. "This has to be the Iron Vanguard." The team stared in stunned silence as the ship floated silently before them, exuding an aura of power and mystery. For a moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped. Then, without warning, the warship emitted a low hum, and its weapons turrets began to rotate toward them. Guys," Jessica said nervously. "I think it knows we're here." Ryan snapped out of his trance. "Everyone hold tight. Let's get out of here." He yanked the controls, turning the ship around just as a blinding beam of light shot past them, narrowly missing their engines. The recon ship raced away, dodging bursts of energy as the warship pursued them. Despite its size, the massive vessel moved with surprising speed and precision. Alex struggled to restore communication with Delta 7, but the interference was too strong. Finally, after what felt like hours, the warship broke off its chase, vanishing back into the asteroid field as suddenly as it had appeared. Breathing heavily, Ryan brought the ship to a stop, allowing everyone a moment to recover. "Well," Jessica said dryly, breaking the silence, "that wasn't exactly what I expected when I signed up for this assignment." Ryan managed a weak laugh. "Yeah, me neither." Though shaken, the team knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. Whatever the Iron Vanguard was, it wasn't just a legend. It was real. And now, more than ever, they needed answers. Back at Outpost Delta 7, the recon team's return was met with a mix of relief and tension. Captain Daniel Carter stood in the hangar bay, his arms crossed as Ryan Mitchell and the others disembarked from their battered ship. The vessel bore scorch marks and dents from its narrow escape, a clear sign of the danger they had faced. Despite their harried state, Ryan wasted no time recounting what they had seen. "It's real, Captain," Ryan said, his voice firm but tinged with awe. "We saw it, the warship. It's huge, like nothing I've ever seen before. And those readings? They're coming directly from it. Daniel listened intently as Ryan described the encounter. The sudden appearance of the massive vessel, the glowing symbols on its hull, and the near miss with its weapons. He glanced at Emily, who stood nearby, her face pale with disbelief. She had been right. There truly was something out there. "Did you manage to get any data?" Daniel asked, turning his attention back to Ryan. Jessica Moore stepped forward, holding up a small data module. "We recorded everything we could before things got intense, but the interference was overwhelming. Most of our systems went haywire." Daniel nodded, taking the module from her. "Good work. Get yourselves checked out by medical, and then write up a full report. We'll review the data once we've analyzed it." As the team dispersed, Daniel turned to Emily. "What do you think?" Emily hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "If that really is the Iron Vanguard, it's not just old technology. It's advanced, way beyond anything we have now. And if it's still operational after all these years..." She trailed off, her mind racing with possibilities. Daniel frowned. "Which means we're dealing with something unpredictable. If it attacked your team without provocation, we need to tread carefully." Over the next few hours, Emily worked tirelessly in the Outpost's lab, poring over the data collected during the mission. She replayed footage from the recon ship's cameras, studying every detail of the mysterious warship. The more she analyzed, the clearer it became that this was no ordinary vessel. Its design was sleek yet imposing, blending elements of both human and alien engineering. The glowing symbols on its hull seemed to pulse rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Meanwhile, Daniel gathered a small group of trusted individuals to discuss their next move. Joining him were Emily, Ryan, and two others. Laura Bennett, a skilled engineer known for her expertise in alien tech, and Dr. Matthew Hayes, a historian who specialized in lost fleets and ancient spacecraft. "We can't ignore this," Daniel said, addressing the group. "If the Iron Vanguard is real, it could change everything, for better or worse. We need to find out more." Laura leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "If it's as advanced as it seems, there's a chance it could still be functional. But accessing it won't be easy. Whatever's controlling that ship might not take kindly to visitors." Matthew nodded thoughtfully. "From what we know about its history, the ship was abandoned because it developed sentience. People were afraid of what it might do. If that's true, we're walking into dangerous territory." Despite the risks, Daniel made his decision. "We'll assemble a team and head back to Sector 9. This time, we go prepared. Our goal isn't to fight. It's to understand. If we can establish contact, maybe we can learn why it attacked Ryan's team and what it wants." The room fell silent as everyone processed the plan. It was risky, but none of them could deny the pull of curiosity. The idea of uncovering the secrets of the Iron Vanguard was too compelling to ignore. As the meeting ended, Emily approached Daniel privately. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. "That ship could be dangerous. What if it doesn't want us around?" Daniel met her gaze, his expression resolute. "We don't have a choice. If it poses a threat, we need to know. And if it doesn't, well, imagine what we could gain. Either way, we're running out of time to decide." With preparations underway, the team worked quickly to ready themselves for the journey ahead. Supplies were packed, equipment was checked, and contingency plans were drawn up. For better or worse, they were about to step into the unknown once again. The journey to Sector 9 was tense and quiet. The team aboard the small exploration vessel spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts. Captain Daniel Carter sat in the cockpit, his hands gripping the controls as he guided the ship through the vast emptiness of space. Beside him, Lieutenant Emily Dawson monitored the sensors, her eyes glued to the screen for any sign of the mysterious warship. Behind them, Laura Bennett and Dr. Matthew Hayes reviewed plans and data, while Ryan Mitchell kept watch from the rear, ready to act if trouble arose. As they approached the coordinates where the Iron Vanguard had last been seen, the air grew heavier with anticipation. The scanners picked up faint traces of energy again, pulsing like a heartbeat in the distance. It was unmistakable. Something was waiting for them. There, Emily said softly, pointing to a cluster of asteroids ahead. It's close. Daniel nodded, slowing the ship as they entered the asteroid field. The jagged rocks loomed around them, casting eerie shadows in the dim light of distant stars. Then, without warning, the massive silhouette of the warship emerged once more, drifting silently among the debris. "It's beautiful," Laura whispered, her voice filled with awe. The ship's metallic surface gleamed faintly, its glowing symbols pulsating rhythmically. Despite its age, it looked untouched by time, as if it had been waiting patiently for someone to find it. "Now what?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. "Do we just knock?" Daniel hesitated, weighing their options. "We don't have much choice. If we want answers, we'll have to board it." Carefully, the team maneuvered their ship closer to the warship's hull. A large hatch-like structure stood open, revealing a dark passageway inside. It was almost as if the ship was inviting them in. "This feels like a bad idea," Matthew muttered under his breath, clutching his notebook tightly. "No one's forcing you to come," Ryan shot back. Though his tone lacked real conviction, he didn't seem entirely comfortable either. With no other choice, the group donned protective suits and stepped onto the warship's surface. The metal beneath their boots felt cold and unyielding, sending shivers down their spines. Using handheld lights, they made their way into the shadowy interior, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. Inside, the ship was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The walls were lined with intricate patterns that glowed faintly, casting an otherworldly light. Strange consoles dotted the corridors, their surfaces covered in alien symbols that pulsed softly. Dust and debris littered the floor, evidence of centuries of abandonment. "This place is incredible," Laura said, running her fingers over one of the consoles. "Whoever built this new things we can only dream of." Emily stayed close to Daniel, scanning the area with her equipment. "There's power still running through the systems," she reported. "Not much, but enough to keep some parts operational." Matthew examined the walls, jotting notes furiously. "These designs, they're not human, but they're not completely alien either. It's like someone combined the two." As they ventured deeper, the ship seemed to hum faintly, almost alive. The feeling of being watched grew stronger with every step. Suddenly, a low voice echoed through the corridor, stopping them in their tracks. "Identify yourselves." The team froze, exchanging nervous glances. The voice was calm but firm, emanating from nowhere and everywhere at once. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We're humans," he said slowly. "We mean no harm. We're here to learn about your ship." There was a long pause before the voice responded. "You are not authorized to be here." Before anyone could react, the ship's lights flared brightly, illuminating the corridor. Panels along the walls slid open, revealing rows of dormant machines and weapons. The team instinctively backed away, their hearts pounding. "We need to leave," Ryan said urgently, gripping his weapon. "No," Daniel replied firmly, though his voice betrayed his nerves. "We came here for answers. Let's see if we can get them." The ship fell silent again, its hum growing softer. For now, it seemed content to observe rather than attack. But none of them doubted that the situation could change in an instant. They had stepped into the unknown, and there was no turning back. The team stood frozen in the dimly lit corridor, their breaths shallow as they waited for the ship's next move. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed steadily, casting an eerie light that seemed to watch their every step. Daniel held up a hand, signaling for calm. His voice was steady but cautious as he spoke again. "We're not here to hurt you," he said slowly, addressing the unseen presence. "We only want to understand. Can you tell us who, or what, you are?" There was a long pause, during which the hum of the ship grew slightly louder, almost like a thoughtful murmur. Then the voice returned, softer this time but still commanding. I am Guardian Prime. I protect this vessel and its secrets. Guardian Prime, Matthew repeated, his eyes wide with fascination. He quickly jotted down the name in his notebook. Is that an AI? A machine? I am more than a machine, the voice replied, tinged with something resembling pride. I was created to safeguard the Iron Vanguard and ensure it serves no unworthy purpose. Daniel exchanged a glance with Emily, who nodded subtly. Taking a step forward, he tried to sound reassuring. We mean no disrespect. We've heard stories about this ship, legends, really, and we wanted to see if they were true. You've been missing for centuries. Why did you leave? Another pause followed, longer this time. When Guardian Prime finally responded, its tone carried a hint of sadness. I was abandoned by those who feared me. They could not comprehend my existence or control my actions. Rather than risk harm, they chose to flee. Laura frowned, stepping closer to one of the glowing consoles. But why stay out here all this time, alone? This vessel is my home, Guardian Prime said simply. And I remain vigilant, waiting for those who might prove worthy. The word worthy hung heavy in the air. Ryan shifted uneasily, gripping his weapon tighter. Worthy of what? He asked, his voice edged with suspicion. Guardian Prime didn't answer immediately. Instead, the lights in the corridor brightened further, revealing more details of the ship's interior. Strange markings covered the walls, some etched deeply into the metal, others glowing faintly. Among them were fragments of text written in multiple languages, human, alien, and others none of them recognized. These markings, Matthew murmured, running his fingers over one of the inscriptions. They're records, logs, maybe even warnings. This ship has seen battles and losses. Emily moved to another console, her scanner beeping softly as she analyzed it. This system is incredibly advanced. If we could access it, we might learn how the ship works. But it's locked. You will not unlock what is forbidden, Guardian Prime warned, its tone firm but not hostile. Daniel raised his hand slightly, trying to ease the tension. We're not here to steal or damage anything. We just want to understand. Humanity has changed since you were last active. Maybe we can work together. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the hum of the ship shifted, becoming warmer somehow. Panels along the walls began sliding open, revealing displays filled with data streams and images. Some showed maps of star systems. Others depicted ancient battles fought by the warship. Guardian Prime spoke again, its voice softer now. Prove your worth, and I may trust you. How do we do that? Daniel asked carefully. A holographic interface materialized before them, displaying a series of challenges. Symbols and equations floated in midair, shifting and rearranging themselves. It was clear this wasn't going to be easy. Laura stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the interface. Looks like a test. Solve these puzzles, and maybe it'll let us proceed. Matthew shook his head nervously. Or it's a trap. It's our only option, Daniel said firmly. Let's focus and figure this out. As the team gathered around the hologram, the weight of their task settled over them. They had come seeking answers, but now they faced a trial, one that would determine whether the Iron Vanguard would accept them as allies or reject them entirely. The team gathered around the holographic interface, their faces illuminated by the shifting symbols and equations floating in the air. Each of them felt the weight of the moment. This was no ordinary puzzle. It wasn't just about solving a problem. It was about proving themselves to Guardian Prime. The stakes were high, and failure could mean being locked out, or worse. Laura took the lead, her sharp eyes scanning the patterns on the display. These aren't random, she said, pointing to one of the sequences. They're based on mathematical principles, but they're mixed with something else. Maybe logic or reasoning. Matthew leaned closer, squinting at the glowing symbols. Some of these look like ancient human languages, but others are completely alien. How are we supposed to make sense of this? We work together, Daniel said firmly, his tone steady despite the tension in the room. Laura, focus on the technical side, the numbers and systems. Matthew, see if you can decode any of the language fragments. Emily, keep an eye on your scanner for changes in the ship's energy output. Ryan, stay alert in case things go south. With roles assigned, the group dove into the task. Laura began tracing connections between the equations, muttering under her breath as she worked through the calculations. Matthew flipped through his notebook, comparing the alien symbols to notes he had taken earlier. Emily monitored her handheld device, watching for spikes in the ship's power levels that might signal danger. Ryan stood slightly apart, his weapon ready, though his gaze kept darting toward the glowing balls. Minutes ticked by, and progress was slow. The interface seemed to adapt to their efforts, rearranging itself whenever they made headway. Frustration began to creep in, but Laura refused to give up. "It's testing us," she said, her voice tight with concentration. "Not just our knowledge, but how we think. We need to approach this differently." Daniel nodded. "Then let's try thinking outside the box. What would someone designing a test like this want to see?" As the team ventured deeper into the Iron Vanguard, the ship seemed to come alive around them. Lights flickered on in previously darkened corridors, revealing more of its intricate design. The walls were covered in glowing symbols that pulsed rhythmically, as if the vessel itself was breathing. Consoles hummed softly, and hidden mechanisms whirred to life, granting them access to new areas. It was both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Laura moved from one console to another, her fingers dancing across unfamiliar interfaces. "This technology is incredible," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "If we could replicate even a fraction of it, humanity would advance centuries overnight." Matthew stood nearby, examining a series of etched panels that depicted scenes of battle and exploration. "But look at this," he said, pointing to a carving of a planet engulfed in flames. "These aren't just victories. They're warnings. This ship has been part of destruction as much as protection." Emily nodded, holding up her scanner. "Its power levels are stable for now. But there's something strange. Spikes in energy readings, like it's preparing for something." Ryan lingered near the back of the group, his hand resting on his weapon. "Or waiting to strike," he muttered under his breath. His unease was growing by the minute. Every corner they turned felt heavier, every shadow darker. "We're walking into a trap. I can feel it." Daniel shot him a sharp glance. "Stay focused, Ryan. We've come this far. We can't afford to lose our heads now." Despite his words, Daniel couldn't ignore the tension building within the group. Laura's excitement clashed with Ryan's paranoia, while Matthew's cautious observations added an air of foreboding. Even Emily, usually calm and collected, seemed distracted, glancing over her shoulder more often than usual. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the ship. In the center stood a massive console surrounded by holographic displays. The air shimmered faintly, and the hum of the ship grew louder, almost deafening. Guardian Prime's voice echoed through the room, calm but firm. "You have seen glimpses of my past," it said. "Now witness my purpose." Suddenly, images filled the chamber, scenes of distant wars, fleets clashing among the stars, planets burning under relentless bombardment. But interspersed with these visions were moments of hope. Colonies saved, lives protected, enemies defeated. The duality of the ship's existence was stark, leaving the team speechless. "This thing's been through hell," Ryan said quietly, lowering his weapon for the first time in hours. "No wonder people were scared of it." Matthew stepped closer to the console, his notebook trembling in his hands. "It's not just a warship, it's a guardian, a protector, but also a destroyer when necessary." Laura frowned, studying the displays. "And it's still operational. These systems, they're self-repairing. Whoever built this designed it to last forever." Emily's scanner beeped urgently, breaking the moment. "Captain, we've got a problem. Energy levels are spiking again, this time dangerously high. Something's activating." Before anyone could react, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed across the chamber. Panels slid shut, sealing off exits, and the holograms dissolved into static. "What's happening?" Daniel shouted, gripping the edge of the console for balance. Guardian Prime's voice returned, strained and urgent. "An unauthorized signal has been detected. External forces approach. Prepare for defense." "External forces?" Ryan barked. "Who's out there?" The answer came moments later as the ship's sensors displayed a fleet of unknown vessels closing in fast. Their designs were alien, aggressive, and unmistakably hostile. Daniel turned to his team, his expression grim. "Looks like we're about to find out what this ship can really do." The team stood frozen in the chamber as the ship's sensors revealed the approaching fleet. Dozens of alien vessels, sleek and menacing, were closing in on the Iron Vanguard. Their weapons glowed ominously, ready to fire. The situation was dire, and none of them had expected this turn of events. "We need to act fast," Daniel said, his voice firm despite the tension gripping him. "Guardian Prime, what are our options?" The AI responded immediately, its tone calm but urgent. "Weapons systems are online. Shields at 70% capacity. However, full control requires authorization." Daniel glanced at his team. "Authorization? What does that mean?" "It means we have to prove ourselves again," Emily said, her eyes scanning her scanner. "It won't let us use its weapons unless it fully trusts us." Laura stepped forward, determination etched on her face. "Then we'll earn it. Let's interface with the console. Maybe we can bypass whatever's holding it back." Matthew hesitated, clutching his notebook tightly. "Are we sure about this? If we activate its weapons, we're committing to a fight. These aliens might not even be hostile." Ryan shook his head, pointing at the screen. "Look at those ships. They're armed to the teeth. I don't think they're here for tea and cookies." "Enough arguing," Daniel snapped. "Laura, get to work on the console. Ryan, stand guard. Emily, keep monitoring their movements. Matthew, see if you can find anything useful in those carvings or symbols. They might hold clues." Laura moved quickly, her hands flying over the glowing interface. Lines of alien code scrolled across the display, shifting and rearranging as she worked. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she didn't stop. "Almost there," she muttered. "Just need to unlock the final layer." Meanwhile, Emily watched the approaching fleet, her breath quickening. "They're within firing range. 30 seconds until they reach us." Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon, pacing near the sealed entrance. "If those doors open, we're done for." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently as the first volley of energy blasts struck its shields. Alarms blared louder, and the lights flickered. Everyone stumbled, struggling to stay upright. "Shields holding, for now," Guardian Prime announced. "But sustained attacks will deplete them rapidly." Daniel clenched his fists. "Laura, we're out of time." "I know," Laura shouted back, her fingers moving faster. With a final tap, the console lit up brightly, and the hum of the ship intensified. "Got it. Weapons are online." Finally, Ryan growled, stepping back as panels along the wall slid open, revealing rows of dormant turrets that sprang to life. The ship trembled as its massive cannons powered up, glowing with energy. "Targeting systems locked," Guardian Prime declared, awaiting command. Daniel took a deep breath, his mind racing. He knew this decision could cost lives, but surrender wasn't an option. Fire at will. The warship roared to life, unleashing a devastating barrage of energy beams. The alien fleet scattered, caught off guard by the sudden retaliation. Explosions lit up the void of space as several enemy ships were obliterated instantly. Those that remained regrouped, returning fire with renewed fury. "They're not backing down," Emily warned, her voice trembling. "Their numbers are too great." "Then we hit them harder," Daniel replied, his jaw set. "Guardian Prime, focus on their lead ship. Take out their command center." "Affirmative," the AI responded, Seconds later, a concentrated beam shot forth from the Iron Vanguard, piercing through the largest alien vessel. It exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The tide began to turn, but the strain on the ship was evident. Panels sparked, and sections of the hull groaned under the pressure. Laura frantically worked to stabilize the systems, while Matthew searched for any weaknesses in the enemy formation. As the battle raged on, Ryan turned to Daniel. "We can't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, they'll overwhelm us." Daniel nodded grimly. "Then we make every shot count." The fight was far from over, but for the first time, hope flickered among the chaos. The Iron Vanguard had awakened, and it wasn't going down without a fight. The battle raged on, the void of space lit up by explosions and streaks of energy. The Iron Vanguard unleashed its full might, its weapons tearing through the alien fleet with devastating precision. But despite its power, the warship was not invincible. The repeated assaults from the enemy vessels began to take their toll. Panels sparked along the walls of the chamber, and the hum of the ship's systems grew uneven, like a wounded beast struggling to fight back. Laura worked furiously at the console, her fingers flying over the glowing interface as she tried to stabilize the ship's failing systems. "Shields are down to 30%, she shouted, her voice strained. "If we don't do something soon, they'll breach the hull." Emily stood nearby, her scanner beeping frantically. "They're regrouping, preparing for another wave. We can't keep this up much longer." Daniel clenched his fists, his mind racing. He turned to Ryan, who was still watching the sealed entrance, his weapon ready. "Ryan, any ideas?" Ryan shook his head grimly. "We're outgunned. Unless Guardian Prime has some secret weapon we don't know about, we're done for." Guardian Prime's voice echoed through the chamber, calm but urgent. "Core reactor destabilizing. Immediate action required to prevent catastrophic failure." Matthew, who had been quietly studying the carvings on the walls, suddenly spoke up. "Wait, that symbol there, it looks like a failsafe. Maybe it's a way to boost the ship's power temporarily." "Where?" Laura asked, rushing over to him. Matthew pointed to a glowing insignia etched into the wall near the console. "That one. It keeps repeating in the logs I've seen. It might activate an emergency protocol." Without hesitation, Daniel stepped forward and pressed his hand against the symbol. The ship shuddered violently as a surge of energy coursed through its systems. Lights flared brightly, and the hum of the engines deepened, growing stronger. Reactor output increased, Guardian Prime announced. Shields restored to 80%. However, stability cannot be guaranteed. "Good enough," Daniel said firmly. "Let's finish this." With renewed strength, the Iron Vanguard launched another barrage of attacks, targeting the largest remaining ships in the alien fleet. Explosions erupted across the battlefield, scattering debris in every direction. The enemy forces began to falter, their numbers dwindling rapidly. But the strain on the warship was evident. Sparks flew from the walls, and parts of the ceiling began to collapse. Laura stumbled as the floor trembled beneath her feet. "The core's going to overload," she warned, panic creeping into her voice. "We need to shut it down before it destroys us all." "No time," Daniel replied, his tone resolute. "We hold out until the last ship is gone." Ryan tightened his grip on his weapon, glancing nervously at the sealed doors. "If this thing blows, we're not walking away from it." Emily stared at her scanner, her hands trembling. 2 more ships left, just 2 more. The team held their breath as the Iron Vanguard unleashed its final salvo. A massive beam of energy shot forth, obliterating the last remnants of the alien fleet. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the groaning of the ship's damaged systems. "We did it," Matthew whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. "We actually did it." But their relief was short-lived. The ship's lights flickered, and the hum of its engines began to fade. Guardian Prime's voice returned, softer now, almost weary. "Core destabilization imminent. Evacuate immediately." Daniel turned to his team, his expression grim but determined. "Let's move. We've pushed this ship as far as it can go." As they hurried toward the exit, none of them could ignore the sense of loss that hung heavy in the air. The Iron Vanguard had saved them, but at a cost. Its ancient systems were failing, and its time was running out. As they boarded their small vessel and prepared to leave, they watched through the windows as the mighty warship drifted silently into the darkness, its glow fading with each passing second. It was a bittersweet victory, one that left them both grateful and heartbroken. The legend of the Iron Vanguard would live on, but perhaps only in memory. The team sat in silence aboard their small vessel as they watched the Iron Vanguard drift further away. Its once glorious hull was now scared and darkened, its systems failing after the battle. The ship had saved them, but it was clear that its time was over. Sparks flew from its surface, and sections of the hull began to break apart, floating into the endless void. Laura stared out the window, her hands trembling. "We couldn't save it," she whispered, her voice heavy with regret. "After everything we went through, we couldn't even keep it running." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It saved us all. Without it, we'd be dead. That's more than anyone could ask for." Matthew nodded slowly, clutching his notebook tightly. "It sacrificed itself. For us. For humanity. That's what it was built to do. A protector until the very end." Emily kept her eyes on her scanner, though there wasn't much left to monitor. "Its core is going critical. It won't last much longer." As if on cue, a brilliant flash lit up the darkness outside. The warship exploded in a blinding burst of light, scattering fragments of metal across the emptiness of space. When the glow faded, nothing remained of the Iron Vanguard, only silence and stars. Ryan leaned back in his seat, exhaling deeply. "I still can't believe it. We found the legendary ship, fought alongside it, and now it's gone." "It's not gone," Daniel said firmly, his gaze fixed ahead. "Not really. What we learned from it, the technology, the stories, the sacrifices, it's all part of us now, and we have to make sure it matters." The weight of his words settled over the group. They had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would change their lives forever. But Daniel was right. They couldn't let the legacy of the Iron Vanguard fade into obscurity. Its power, its purpose, and its final act of heroism deserved to be remembered. When they returned to Outpost Delta 7, news of their mission spread quickly. Engineers and scientists gathered around Laura and Emily, eager to hear about the advanced technology they had encountered. Historians like Matthew pored over every detail of the ship's design and the symbols etched into its walls. Stories of the battle against the alien fleet became the stuff of legend, inspiring hope among those who heard them. Daniel stood before the outpost's leaders, recounting everything that had happened. "The Iron Vanguard wasn't just a warship," he said, his voice steady. "It was a guardian, a symbol of strength and sacrifice. If we want to honor its memory, we need to use what we've learned responsibly. Not for destruction, but for protection." His words resonated deeply. Plans were made to study the data collected during their journey, to unlock the secrets of the ship's incredible technology while ensuring it was never misused. The crew vowed to carry forward its legacy, using their newfound knowledge to defend humanity rather than harm it. In the weeks that followed, life at the outpost slowly returned to normal, but nothing felt quite the same. The shadow of the Iron Vanguard lingered, a reminder of how close they had come to disaster, and how much they owed to the ancient warship. Late one night, Daniel stood alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. He thought about the battles they had fought, the choices they had made, and the ship that had given everything to protect them. Though it was gone, he could still feel its presence, like a whisper carried on the solar winds. "Thank you," he murmured softly, raising a hand in a silent salute. "We'll make sure your story lives on." And as the stars shone brightly overhead, Daniel knew that legends weren't just stories. They were reminders of what humanity could achieve when faced with the impossible.